This is today's business leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right. So today on the show, I have Jessica Olbin, and she is the founder of flourishconsulting.info. So you can check that out. We'll talk more about that later, but welcome to the show, Jessica. Super glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped.
Me too. Jessica's on my team too, which is super cool. She is kind of a position that I created called an internal consultant, because I don't need her just to be like a vendor, and I don't need her to be all the way on my team. And she's actually, it's really worked out really well. She's super, super strong in that and super efficient, which we'll get to in a little bit later. But in the meantime, why don't you tell us, Jessica, about the first time that you realized that you were an entrepreneur?
I realized I was an entrepreneur after getting a massage, actually.
Wow.
So I'll explain a little bit. And my massage therapist is actually one of my clients and my longest running client. I had the most amazing massage of my life and didn't understand why I hadn't heard of him before and why he wasn't as like badass or kick-ass as I thought he was. And then I realized that he needed help, and I had the skill set to help him, and I had the skill set to help a lot of other people. So that's the moment that I had clarity of what I wanted to do.
Cool. So I think it's really interesting. Like the different people that come on my show, a lot of people were like, well, when I was a kid, like this, and then I have people that realize after being in corporate America, they hated it and they decided to change. From that moment, and how long ago was that?
That was a year and a half ago.
Cool. So that's really interesting, and we've never talked about this, so it's kind of cool too. Or not that I remember, but you seem like you've been doing this for decades. A little while at least, because like you just really have a lot of maturity about how you handle things and work on things, and you're super smart. So color in, and I'm trying to figure out my question, that's why I'm saying all this. But color in for me, like from a year and a half ago to today, and also like how you got to that point, because I think that you probably realized you could be an entrepreneur and then you chose to, but I also believe that like experiences and like how we're born and other things kind of get us to that point. So give us some brief history on how we got to where we are today.
So I was in corporate America for a good 15 years. I was general manager, managing employees, businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses, and I fucking hated my life. It was ridiculous, and I couldn't be me. I had to be someone else, and that was okay. I was successful. Things went well, but I got pregnant with my daughter, who's almost 6, and decided that that was my scapegoat, that I could, be a stay-at-home mom from that point forward. So like literally the first like 6 months after, being at home, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm never going to work again. This is awesome. Like, this is the life for me. And then like, I just started feeling this void within myself. And I knew something was missing. Of course, I love being a mom. I love my kids. But I had all of these skills, all of this like badassness inside that I wasn't able to, get out. And then I had the massage, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is the purpose of my life, is to be an entrepreneur and to like share my skills with other people. So yeah, then I started Flourish, and here I am flourishing.
Awesome. I know it's part of kind of what you talk about, what you do, but I always like tell people, like, if you want to unfuck your business, then call Jessica, because that's what she does. And when we first got together, this is also just kind of speaks to how you operate and who you are and why I trust you. But we met like this over Zoom in April, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
And I thought that I needed a project manager, which I did. but I interviewed a bunch of people who were all awesome. But I was like, it's like, it doesn't feel right. So I decided not to do it. I'm trying to live more out of my intuition. And so I'm like, hey, like, I super want to hire you, but I don't feel like I should, so I'm not going to. Is a message I sent you. And you're like, yeah, that's totally cool. And like, it was awesome. And like, I don't remember what we talked about on the call, but I remember we had like a really fun conversation. And I was like, man, Jessica's cool. And so then like 3 or 4 weeks later, like another thing popped up and I was like, oh, I don't need a project manager. I need an integrator. I need an implementer. Like I need somebody between me who's like always visionary and running around with my head cut off, and my operations team who like once they have a process can do it. And I build a ton of processes and I can do the implementation, but it's time consuming and I don't always love it. Sometimes I super love it and I don't always love it. And so I was like, hey, maybe you could do this. Like, I don't know if this would work. And, and you're like, yeah, we'll try it. And then we sat down and what I really liked was, I was like, I think this is worth trying. And I'm like, if we hate each other, then it's fine. We can, like, in a work sense, like, then we can part as friends. But I'm like, well, we should totally try it. And then I just, like, dumped out everything I wanted in, like, 60, 70 minutes. And then you took it and ran with it. And that's kind of unique because I'm the only guy I know besides you who can just, like, take a random jumbled bunch of ideas and then make something out of it. And so I was like, holy shit, this is cool.
It's so fun. Like, it's just like, I relate like what I do a lot to like playing video games, like Tetris, or puzzles, because some people can just put all the pieces together and make it fit and make it work well. In function, by, putting the pieces together. And sometimes it's a slow process and sometimes it's done quickly, but no, I love it. I love, seeing like chaos, and then like figuring out in my mind how to like make all the pieces fit together, or pack a car up, like when we're going on like a vacation, like, or a U-Haul, like when we move, like I can get all this shit in there. Like, fuck yeah, like watch me do it. You know what I mean?
Nice. Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy of like Tetris and stuff, because that's like a lot of businesses figuring out patterns and how things fit together, and it's never the way you think it's going to fit together, ever. Not in my experience, because like we've done two different projects together. The one is like live and operational. The other one isn't totally live yet because I haven't launched it yet, which I'm launching next week. But even in the one that we put together, it's like we ran through it a few times and we have to adjust and change. And I think that's what people forget sometimes is like there's no straight lines. Like it's always about putting it together once. Oh, does that work? And then if you need to take it apart and put it together again or whatever it is. And that's important because I think that if you come into hiring somebody or working with somebody or doing a project or launching somebody, then you can end up, and it doesn't go perfectly the first time, which it won't, then you could be frustrated. Whereas if you go into it with the expectation of like, we're going to keep working on this until we get it straight and get it right, and as long as we're making progress, we're good, then I think that that's a huge thing that
I was just going to say that, like, forward progress is always good. I mean, nothing is going to be perfect. I mean, even like if you're writing a piece of copy, you can edit that shit 100 times and then still continue to edit it. But I mean, it's just initially, forward motion is always the best motion. I mean, and yes, there may be setbacks or hiccups, but being mindful that it takes that to, create a better process or a better way of doing something or seeing something that was missed. I think you can't go into something expecting there to be perfection. I mean, maybe a little bit of fucked up sprinkled in on the side, and then it can always get better from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're having your massage and you're realizing this person needs help, and then you're like, oh, I can help you. What kind of things, like when do people typically bring you in? And then what do you fix, or how does it work, or like what happens from there? Because I would be like, I've gone in and done turnarounds and helped people with things, and I do consulting, so I get it, but not quite the same way you do it. And it seems like it could be totally overwhelming on both sides. So how does it all work?
Well, initially, when I first started my business, I was helping like non-technical savvy, like brick and mortar type businesses, kind of move online and grow their business, and just kind of like being like a business manager for them, like helping them make educated like strategical moves in their business, and just giving them insight to things that they didn't really have or know. They were badass at what they did, but they just weren't sure like what to do next. So then what I do now, like the unfuck stuff, as my clients grew, I noticed that there's a lot of like fucked up shit in operations, and there people don't have procedures in place. And as entrepreneurs, we do, and then we fix or organize later, and it really can bite you in the ass later on. So if you have, a skeleton or a process or a procedure of something, then you're able to, scale that faster and better. So basically, I kind of come in and just do like a consultation, like a brain dump with you, like, okay, what are your challenges? What kind of things are you running into? Like, where do you see yourself going? What do you think is inhibiting you from doing that? And then just kind of getting the information from what they're doing or what they've tried in the past and failed and where they want to go. I'm able to say, okay, you need to hire this, or you need to have a procedure for this, or you need to unfuck your mindset, or, all of the pieces that, feed us and make us grow as a person and as a business. I mean, I help businesses scale, but you can't scale unless your internal self is ready to take that next leap.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Because
What I totally agree with you that like entrepreneurs and business owners and even people that just have an entrepreneurial seizure will go out and like start the thing and go do it, which is super important. That's the difference between an entrepreneur and a entrepreneur. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it like sticks and works, and sometimes it doesn't work. When do you think, what are the reasons why it works, and what are the reasons why it doesn't work? Because you come into those situations where like everything's a disaster, and then you fix it and life is great. And you've probably come into situations where everything's a disaster and it can't be fixed.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't work when you aren't willing to accept that it is a test and adjust type of thing. When you don't have the mindset, or when you let the self-doubt and you don't have the confidence in yourself or your product or your team, shit doesn't work. It won't ever work that way. Yeah. I believe that sometimes things are completely fucked up and they need to be scratched and redone. That happens, and that's okay. There's just a better way, and sometimes it's better just to throw away the piece of notebook paper instead of erasing everything and rewriting it. Yeah. But most of the time, some of the pieces are there. They just need to be, brought out or reorganized or realigned to make things work more smoothly, have structure, accountability, all of those things that go into it.
That part makes me laugh. I think that having accountability is what we all don't want when we become entrepreneurs. And then we realize that we super need it if we want to get to the next level.
Yeah, right? I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, they have a to-do list of things. They have things that are urgent and that are important that need to get done. And it's really easy not to focus on the things that are not important because they don't have deadlines. They can be like, oh, I can put that off until tomorrow. And then it becomes next week. And then the dam breaks and like hell breaks loose. And had they addressed it at that point in time, then they wouldn't be, going through all of the problems or the issues that they're having. But yeah, even though you can do what you want when you're an entrepreneur, you really can't. And if you don't have that accountability built in yourself, then you need to seek for it. You need someone else to hold you accountable and help you. It doesn't make you weak or not intelligent or not a good person. It makes you stronger because you know your problems and what you need to focus on.
Yeah, I hire all of my accountability, so I could never ever do it on my own.
Right.
or it would be a disaster at best. What do you think, like you mentioned, like ignoring those really important things and then they come back to bite you, which I totally agree with. And then there's some things that you should just ignore all the time and never do. Like just, they're not important. How do you think as an entrepreneur we're supposed to pay attention? And I don't know the answer to this, and you may not either, but how do we know like at what threshold things are where we're like, that is important and now is the time to pay attention to it because it is going to screw me over? How do you make that determination? Because there's every day as an entrepreneur, you have tons and tons and tons of people pulling at you and distractions and things like that. So how do you get to that level with people, or have you helped people figure that out before?
I don't know that I actually have like a legit answer for this. I do believe that you always have to keep in mind, does it align with my vision? Does it align with my end game goal?
Mm-hmm.
Does doing this or spending my time and energy on this, will this be valuable to me in the future? Now, granted, I am a huge advocate of fuckery. Like, take time for yourself. Like, go down that YouTube rabbit hole. Like, get sucked into that crazy ass thread. You know what I mean? It's important to give your brain, brain breaks. So I'm not saying, that's not okay to take the time or, self-care and whatever. But it's actually essential for you to be able to be successful and to give yourself a break. But I think in the long run, making sure that it aligns with who you are and your vision and what your brand and what you hope to accomplish end game wise.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think that's important. And I don't know the answer either necessarily. I just think a lot of it for me anymore is intuition. But somebody said something to me last week on the show that was really interesting. He said, what is experience? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, experience is going through enough repetitions of failure inside of a process to be experienced inside that process. Because if everything goes smoothly, then that's great, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you're not. What good are you? Like, because if it goes smoothly, then it's just the process is being followed and things are going fine. But if you hit some hiccups and you can survive those or go through them or go through the down part, the ups and downs and the things that break, then you actually have experience. And I think for me, having had lots of experiences over the years, like my intuition is more developed from that also, but I've also just super tried to pay attention to my intuition because then I can just kind of feel things sooner than I can logically explain them.
Right. I think like when you discuss that, like I think it makes me think of me having 2 kids. So like your first kid is like an experiment. Like she's still alive. She's going great. Like she's not an asshole. Like here comes a second one. Like now I know how to set boundaries and expectations. Granted, he is completely a different dragon than she is. So it's a different person, but I have the experience of knowing, okay, this is what worked, what didn't work. And so now I can apply that. And depending on the situation, it may or may not work because, everything is different, and especially with like living, breathing things. But no, that's definitely how I feel the relatability to that.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that you're super, super strong in this, and you probably know, but like you are extremely confident.
Yeah.
You're extremely confident as a person. And also I'll just say like you're extremely confident as a woman. And because sometimes I think, unfortunately, the way our world is, like women don't always get the support that they need to become confident, which obviously is changing, which is good. But there's a lot of work that everybody needs to do there to make that happen and support that. But my question is, because you're super confident, do you think your confidence comes from experience or from a choice to be confident? Or like explain that more, because we're working together because you're super confident and you know what you're doing. But if you weren't confident, I wouldn't have hired you.
Right. Well, thanks. It's funny that you talk about that actually, because I just had a coaching call with my coach, Tori Reed, and I had the idea to write a piece about confidence. I feel like, and so I was just doing some self-reflecting, and I feel like confidence is something that I've had my entire life. I am pretty confident. I mean, even though I've sucked at things and gotten better at them, I still have this some confidence, like filing cabinet in my brain that just like wiggles, you know what I mean, all the time, because I know that I can get better if I practice at something. So I was trying to think of what helped shape my confidence. And number one, I believe that it's been like the support that I've gotten from my family or from people around me. And just supporting me even through failures is important and makes me, you know, feel the warm fuzzies, the good things inside. And like, of course, like having a kid, like I'm a parent and I'm like, I don't know how to raise a kid. Like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? But I was confident that I could keep my kid alive and, you know, and do good things. And ultimately, you know, things are going really, really well. But confidence is something that I really, my daughter is extremely confident and I love it. And I embrace that. And I embrace that by letting her wear what she wants to wear, letting her be comfortable in her own skin, letting her, you know, have feelings and talk about them and feel secure and safe when she's communicating with me. But yeah, I actually I set some time aside to think about what has made me confident. But so far, it's only like the support that I've gotten from my family and my own, my ability to know that I am badass and that I can accomplish something even if it's hard and I don't think that I'm going to be good at it.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Thanks. How I roll.
Because I didn't know the answer like for myself, but I think you broke it down for me, which is good. I think my confidence originally came from my grandfather who like raised me. So he was like, oh yeah, you can do that. And like I did things that adults were supposed to do when I was 9. And so that was super, super helpful. And I think that propelled me through my good and bad experiences because I was like, oh, well, my grandpa thinks I can do this. Like, I guess like consciously and subconsciously, I think I was actually thinking that. And then because of that belief that was imparted from him, then I pushed through all the stupid shit I've done over the years and all the things I've broken and crashed. And now that I have all that experience, I think now my confidence comes from experience. But I think that originally it was like a gift, you know, from my grandfather. And like, that's pretty interesting.
I also think too that it comes from, from fearlessness. I mean, granted, yes, it's okay to fear things and to be afraid of things. However, I was just talking to someone about this. I literally asked myself, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like with my daughter, she's trying to like overcome her fear of going across the monkey bars on our play set. And so we've actually been working on the 5-second rule. Like she counts down from 5 to 1, and then she just attempts to go. And I'm like, dude, what's the worst thing that you could happen? You could fall to the ground. You might fall. It's not going to hurt. But I feel like I when thinking of, you know, a task or taking on something, I'm like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? I'm probably still going to be alive afterwards. My family is still going to be alive. And really, like your worst fear is probably some stupid imaginary like bullshit thing. Like a dragon is going to swoop down and like scoop up one of my kids and you know what I mean? Take them to their lair. But that shit's not real. You know what I mean? It's an unfounded fear.
Yeah. I like that too. That's I'm glad you brought that up because I'm the same way. Like I'm always like, what's the worst that could happen? And weirdly enough, I'm super risk adverse, but I wouldn't say I have any fear about because I know what the bottom looks like, and I know how to get there. And so like risking something, even like spending a few $1,000s on something, or like I bought a little company last fall that I'm into, like $20,000 into, which is not a huge thing, but like, so like I thought it through and I've learned a lot, and I will think that kind of discipline through at a new level next time because I missed a bunch of things I should have thought about. But like, I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? Like I just have to pay the credit card off for like 3 or 4 years. Like if I never get any revenue out of this idea and I totally fuck up, then that's okay. Like I can just recover and keep going. And that's another good thing that I didn't really think about. That's definitely a part of confidence and really thinking things through all the way. I had a conversation earlier today with someone And I was like, I think you have transferred beliefs from somebody else about this subject. And because of that, when those beliefs are challenged, it super challenges you because it's uncovering the fact that you don't know what you believe. And I said, so, you know, break it all the way down. And I want you to write out what actually would happen in this scenario. Like, what's the worst that could happen and what would you have to do? And like, explore it all the way. And then if you do that, like you said, then it's like, oh, well, I could probably survive that. Or I don't want that to happen and I need to make a different choice. Like, you just be honest with yourself.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah. So I think that's huge because entrepreneurship is hard.
It is. And I mean, there's a lot of things that are scary and that are uncomfortable. And I mean, you can't just tell someone to, okay, like embrace it, you know, get uncomfortable, you know, do it. I feel like, you know, there's a lot of things that are involved in that. And I think that I know that failure breeds success. So I know that if I fail at something, I'm going to learn from that. And then I'm going to be a better person and be able to make better choices because of that. So the most successful people have failed a shit ton in their life. And they've been, you know, at the bottom and, you know, built their way back up. And I mean, you have to have failure to be able to succeed and grow and be awesome.
That was good. What did you say? Failure
breeds success.
Failure breeds.
I wonder, is that a quote? If not, I just made it.
I like that. That's why I've never heard it like that before. I like that. Cool. Yeah. So I think the other thing that, like, we have been talking a ton about mindset, obviously, but when are people stuck that you can't get them, they can't move forward and it's a mindset problem? Like, what do you try to do? Or what are the things that you think people just get super stuck and how do they get over that? Because entrepreneurship is 80% mindset for sure.
I think a lot of it is like self-doubt, self-sabotage type things. I'm not good enough. What if someone doesn't buy my shit? Like, what if I post this piece of content and no one like engages with it? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a lot of the talks that I have with people are just, you know, affirmations, like reminding them, like, you are actually badass. Like, you must have forgotten, but you really are. And like, sometimes shit doesn't go the way that you want it to go. But like the power of your thoughts and even like manifestation is like legit real. Like, I will, you know, think of how I want my life to be or how I want a situation to be. And I'm not saying that, you know, you can, you know, bend the laws of God, but I mean, I really feel like thinking of, you know, positive things or what the outcomes of things. Because once you get stuck in that negative mindset and all of the bullshit, not to say that it doesn't happen, it happens to everyone. But it's a really dark place and it can really, you know, derail like your future and everything. And you just start applying like the negative to everything. Yeah. And that's super lame.
I was thinking about with manifestation, which is definitely like an interesting topic to get into because most people don't get it. So that's a hard thing. And then there's plenty of people that misrepresent things too. And that doesn't help with any situation, but it's definitely a real thing. And sometimes for me, when I'm trying to explore something or figure it out, I think about the opposite. Because if I can look at the opposite of what I want, or I can explore the opposite, that'll help me more clarify what I want. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about, like, if you're a heroin addict, which unfortunately I've known many of them, even family members, you manifest what you want out of your life and then you do it. So like, if you want to get high, you think about getting high all the time. And then if you think about it all the time and the opportunity happens to come up, then you're going to go connect with your drug dealer and put heroin in your arm. And that's just manifestation. Like it's an oversimplification, but it's the same thing that we do, because if we say, like 2 years ago, I manifested this, now that I'm thinking about it, I decided, you know what, I know I don't enjoy managing, I'm not a good manager, and I don't really have the team culture that I want. And I'm like, so I'm going to work on that. And 2 years later, not without effort, but like 2 years later, I think I'm a decent manager and I have a phenomenal team. And it was because like I started focusing on it and thinking about it and then you end up seeing things and reading other things or paying attention to how people manage. And part of it is just thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to actually, so the power of manifestation, the way that how this came about for me, my husband is a huge golfer, an avid golfer. And I play golf sometimes too, not lately. But so we were playing this course and it was a little par 3 and I was on the green and it was over water. So you had to hit your ball over the water to land on the green. So I'm thinking in my mind, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water. But I needed to be thinking, hit it on the green, hit it on the green, hit it on the green. So eliminating the negative, the water, not even thinking about the fucking water and just thinking about the green. Literally, that we played that course a couple of times and that was the difference in me actually hitting it onto the green, was not thinking about that fucking water, thinking about the green. So it's the same thing. I mean, it's the same hole, nothing changed, just what I was envisioning in my mind, not hitting it over the water, but actually hitting it next to the hole was the thing that made the difference.
That is an excellent example because I golf and you're totally right.
I know.
But that's a great example. And I think another way to explain manifestation as I'm thinking about it is that if you are uncomfortable with that concept or that word, realize that, for anybody listening, it's like, realize that your mind is way more powerful than you have any idea that it is. So is your body. And so is like the universe and God and like all this shit that's glued together here that we're on this little planet. So if you can just like use your tool, your mind in the right way, then it will work the right way. And like you said, if you're focusing on getting over the water, you're guaranteed to go in it.
Every time.
But if you set up that same shot on this exact same hole that had no water in front of you, you would hit it right to the green because you wouldn't have the opportunity to think about the water.
Exactly. And so when you're thinking about negative thoughts, even just like if you're driving and someone cuts you off and you're like, you're a dick, like you're an asshole, like it's that self-talk sometimes that, derails you. And then you're like, oh, like, even though you're not talking to yourself, it's something that happens inside of you and your brain sometimes doesn't know, or it doesn't make the differentiation. So, and I don't know necessarily, like I've watched The Secret and read The Secret, and I don't know that, I don't pretend I'm driving my Camaro or anything. I understand that people do that and that's okay. And whatever floats your boat, I don't judge. But actually literally just the other day, one of my friends was having some serious self-doubt and some mindset issues. And I said, let's stop talking for a second. And I need you to visualize you getting 4 messages in your Facebook inbox. Just imagine a number 4 up there, just to try to, make them feel like, okay, people are going to reach out. Literally by the end of that day, he messaged me and said, no shit, I had 4 messages in my inbox that were all potential clients. And I was like, holy shit,
Awesome.
like, I believe in the power of, good thoughts and good vibes and everything, but like legitimately 4, it really truly happened. So yeah, it's freaking crazy. Shit works.
Crazy. Yeah. And I think that, I think if we just align our mind in the right way, it does the thing that we can't explain, we don't know. And then I have this other theory. I don't know if I've told anybody this yet, and this is totally insane. But I'm going to tell you.
I love stuff that starts out that way.
And I am going to reply to one comment. Yes, you're late, Amy, and you'll have to start at the beginning to get context on that comment. So anyway, this is a crazy, crazy concept, but I kind of believe it. So, honeybees, like how they all live in a hive together and they all communicate by like bumping into each other and like with their antennas, and like they have like a communication system that we know a little bit about, but we don't really have it all figured out. And I think they communicate with like sound, motion, and energy, like actual electric energy between each other is my theory. I think that all of us communicate via energy, and we use channels to channel the energy. So obviously we're talking and face to face in this case. And so we have like words, tone, body language, all that stuff coming together. But we're just channeling into this channel right now. If like we chat all day, like you're on our team, like everybody just chats. Like we do a lot of video too, we do tons of chat. When I'm just writing text, like you can tell if I'm frustrated just by the way I'm writing. I don't have to say fuck for you to know that I'm fucking pissed. So that energy comes through that channel or through those words. And so when people write like a Facebook post or they write a blog post or they do something like an output from themselves, and they're putting energy into that too, and people can read that, even the same 3 words like that you would write or that I would write, they carry a different message inside of them because of the energy. So if all that's true, which I think it is, then we probably have other radiating energy channels that we don't know about. And so you just described like manifestation, and you're like, by the end of this, you're going to have 4 things in your inbox. I think the only reason that happens is because we're all networked like a hive, and like we're all bouncing energy off each other through channels like this, through face-to-face, through like in real life physical connections. And then that creates like this cultural energy wave that's running the planet. Like I think that if there's a God, that's God. And then on top of that, like when we put a request out into the network of energy, it comes back as long as we've fed good energy into the network.
Yeah. Dude, like,
how insane is that?
No, the thing is, like, and we've talked about this before, like people align, like the universe brings people together, like, and just like you saying, you know, you put out a message and I put out the same message, you know, people that are aligned with that energy, or like with me, I feel like that will resonate with them and it will speak to them, and people that aren't, it will I mean, it's just like attraction marketing, you know what I mean?
Right.
But no, I totally dig that. I think that people have vibes. I'm not like versed or knowledgeable about like auras or any of that serious stuff. But no, I definitely believe that's true. And I definitely believe, the universe gives you what you put into it. So, if you're putting in shit, you're going to get, shit back. But, if you're putting out good stuff, I mean, the universe will reward and will align with you.
Yeah. It's super crazy. But
I love it.
But that's like part of manifestation too. And I think, and part of like understanding the fact that every decision we make has like a ripple effect out into other people's lives, and like directly and indirectly. And it's like, I think we're all living in the same energy field.
For sure.
And we have little
I feel that
inside it, which is, it's pretty interesting. I don't know. That was a tangent.
It's a cool tangent though. Like, I don't feel like people think about that. I mean, and a lot of it is being self-aware. I think that's another thing that comes into like confidence, into like personal growth, is like how self-aware you are, and where you'll take that self-awareness. Whether you're actually going to lie to yourself and pretend like it doesn't exist, or whether you're going to actually address it, and move on or grow or learn from it.
Yeah. How do you think people develop self-awareness? Because I wasn't self-aware until like 4 or 5 years ago. And I don't know if there's a path or it just happens.
I was self-aware, but not like I am now until, recently, the last couple year, maybe even sooner than that. I think it happens like as we hit different phases in our lives. I don't want to necessarily say like maturity or age, but maybe just life experiences. And I mean, also, I think it also has to do with the people around you. I think it has to do with your tribe and your relationships, because someone in my tribe, or for example, Amy Smith, like if I was fucking up and like something wasn't going right, she would be like, girl, like, come on. And so if I wasn't self-aware, I know that we are the type of, we have that relationship that she would feel comfortable to make me self-aware of it. So I think that has something to do with it, like who you surround yourself with, and the people, and how, if you can't be honest with yourself, then they can be honest with you for you. And then it piques that self-awareness, and then you become, more open and able to see those things.
Good answer. Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think it definitely has a lot to do with who you hang out with. And that part, I don't think I've in the beginning made a ton of conscious choice about who I ended up being around. The older I've gotten, like, then I started making more and more choices around that, but that's definitely something that you should pay attention to. And I had somebody reach out to me this morning and give me some feedback, which was super valuable. Just like you said, they're like, I don't think you're screwing this up, but it's just be aware of X, Y, and Z. And I was like, I super appreciate that. Like, my respect level for somebody goes way, way up when they reach out privately, do it the right way, and say like, hey, just so you know, may not want to do that anymore. Or
well, you may have blinders on, like you may not be able to see the situation, how it is. Like, you're not like seeing it from an outside perspective. I mean, you're inside yourself. So, I mean, it's easy to get caught up in things. And again, I mean, that just, when you finally realize that, like, okay, like, let me get outside of myself for a second and look at the situation. And you are willing and able to be completely honest with yourself. I think that's a big thing. It's really easy to lie to yourself. It's really easy to, ignore things or not accept responsibility or like accountability for things. And I think maybe that's what it is now that I'm saying that, like the ability to accept responsibility and accountability. I think that level that you have for that helps you or determines your self-awareness.
Yeah. And as you were saying that too, I was thinking like the only way that you can accept feedback to become more self-aware is if you're humble. And the only way to be humble is get humbled, at least for me.
Right.
like have bad things happen, or be aware of like, your shortcomings, or have somebody tell you off and tell you how you totally screwed up. And if you can accept that and be humble about it, then I think you have the opportunity to be more self-aware. So
you can't let your ego get in the way. That's a big thing. I mean, you got to check that shit at the door, or you're not going to be able to grow.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. This has been fun.
Right? I know.
For hours. But
I feel like we like do this anyway. Like when we have like meetings, like we go off on these.
Yeah.
This would have happened eventually in just like a regular meeting that we would have had.
That's right. This is just a public version. So if people want to work with you, like who's your ideal customer, like that you can super help and that you love working with, and how do they connect with you if they want to unfuck their business and flourish?
My ideal customer is an experienced entrepreneur who has a team of people who may be at 6 figures looking to scale to 7 figures looking to scale to 8. Maybe even someone who's like a solopreneur who's ready to have a team that just needs to get over themselves and do it. And then like unfuck their chaos in mind. So yeah, established people looking to move to the next level, to level up. And you can reach me on Facebook. That's pretty easy. Slide up in my DMs. You can, I have a website that's on my Facebook page. So yeah, there's plenty of ways you can find me. Easy. Not
cool.
hard.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on, Jessica. It's a blast as always, and this one we just did publicly. So totally cool. Everybody that's tuning in, watching now and watching the replay or on YouTube or iTunes, appreciate you guys. And if you're enjoying this, share the show with somebody, tag somebody, give us a rating if you feel like we don't suck. Give us a great 5-star rating. That'd be awesome. And tune in on the next episode, because I'm sure I'll have some amazing guests. I can't remember who's next, but they're going to be awesome. So thanks, Jessica. I appreciate you having me on.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.